Welcome back to the Malaysian Money Matters Show. It's the 24th of January, 2025, and we've got quite a bit to unpack today. So get ready for a deep dive into some interesting company news right here from Malaysia, and then we'll zoom out and see what's making waves internationally,
Yeah, sounds like a plan. I'm sure our listeners are keen to know what's going on and how it'll impact them.
for sure. So let's jump right in with that company news. First off, Indonesia's deputy minister is making some pretty bold predictions about AI and the future of jobs. What are your thoughts on that,
hmm
especially for us here in Malaysia?
Well, it's fascinating. This prediction that AI could displace something like 92 million jobs globally, but at the same time create 170 million new ones by 2030. It really highlights just how much technology is changing the way we work. And for Malaysians, I think it's a wake-up call. We can't afford to be complacent. We've got to be proactive about developing those in-demand digital skills and also nurturing those uniquely human qualities that AI can't replicate. You
No.
know, things like creativity and critical thinking.
Right. It's not just about learning to code. It's about being adaptable and ready to pick up new things throughout our careers.
Exactly. It's a lifelong learning journey. Now, speaking of tech giants, Apple and Google are facing a bit of heat in the UK over their dominance in the mobile market.
Yeah, that investigation by the UK CMA definitely caught my eye, too. They seem concerned about how much control Apple and Google have over everything from the operating systems to the app stores,
Yeah.
and whether that's stifling competition.
Right. And what's interesting here is that this investigation could have implications that reach far beyond the UK. If they find that Apple and Google are engaging in anti-competitive practices, it could lead to changes in how we access apps and content on our phones here in Malaysia.
Hmm.
We might see more options for downloading apps outside of the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, which could lead to more choices for consumers, lower prices, and maybe even more innovation.
Yeah, that would be a game changer for consumers. Now let's move on to some positive news. It's fantastic to see Fortescue, the Australian mining giant, making a major investment in green hydrogen in Bintulu's Sarawak. And it's even more impressive considering that Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim himself was involved in securing this deal. What a win for Malaysia.
Absolutely. This is huge. And it's not just about the investment itself. This move has the potential to turn Bintulu into a global hub for green hydrogen, attracting even more investment and creating tons of new jobs in this booming industry. And, green hydrogen is often called the fuel of the future because it doesn't produce any greenhouse gas emissions when you burn it. So this is a big win for Malaysia's sustainability goals as well. Imagine Sarawak becoming a global leader in clean energy. What a powerful image for the country.
It really is. Okay, let's turn our attention now to the right world. Axis REIT is reporting some impressive numbers for Q4 of last year. Their net property income is up over 15%.
Yeah, they've done well. Their strong performance is partly due to their strategic acquisitions of new properties and an increase in tenancies. They're also benefiting from something called rental reversions, which basically means they're able to increase rents on their existing properties. This is a positive sign for the Malaysian REIT market overall and could make REITs a more appealing option for investors who are looking for steady income.
And they're even proposing a final income distribution of 1.27 sen per unit. That sounds promising for investors. Speaking of REITs, KIP REIT is also making some big moves with a pretty aggressive acquisition strategy. They're aiming to reach RM2 billion in assets as quickly as possible, focusing mainly on retail and industrial properties in secondary townships. What are your thoughts on this strategy?
I think it's a smart move. KIP REIT is recognizing the growth potential of these secondary townships and capitalizing on the increasing demand for retail and industrial space in those areas. It's a good example of how smart investors are looking beyond the usual hotspots to find opportunities.
Interesting. Now let's shift gears to the construction and manufacturing sectors. Banastra Corporation, formerly Commentel, is making headlines because they might start paying dividends a year earlier than planned.
Yeah, they've seen strong earnings growth, which is great news for shareholders. And this early dividend payout is a strong signal that they're confident about their future prospects.
That's great. And on a similar note, Kayamata Cement is doubling their clinker production capacity with a brand new facility in Sarawak. Some of our listeners might be wondering, what exactly is clinker?
Right, clinker is a crucial ingredient in cement production, essentially. It's a stony material that's made by heating limestone and clay in a kiln. This expansion by Kayamata Cement is a significant development because it means they'll be able to produce more cement locally, which could lead to lower prices for construction projects all over Malaysia, potentially impacting the cost of everything from housing to infrastructure.
Okay, that's fascinating. So this move could have ripple effects throughout the Malaysian economy.
Precisely. It just goes to show that even seemingly isolated company decisions can have much broader implications. Now, before we move on to international news, let's take a moment to reflect. Out of all this company news we've just discussed, what stands out to you the most? What do you think our listeners should be paying close attention to?
Well, for me, it's that green hydrogen investment in Sarawak. That's a big one. It's not every day you see a global mining giant like Fortescue making that kind of commitment to a developing country. And the potential benefits for Malaysia are huge, both in terms of economic growth and, moving towards a more sustainable future.
I agree. That one's got real game changer potential. It's exciting to see Malaysia positioning itself as a leader in the green energy sector. And I'm also really intrigued by this whole AI and jobs thing. It's both exciting and a little unnerving at the same time.
Totally. It's like we're standing at the edge of this massive technological revolution and we don't really know what's on the other side. But one thing's for sure, we've got to embrace lifelong learning and be ready to adapt if we want to thrive in this new world. Absolutely. Okay, so let's shift gears and look at what's happening on the international stage. Trump's back in the White House, and he's already making waves with his trade policies. He's talking about tariffs on imports from China, Canada, Mexico, even Europe. How could this impact Malaysia?
Well, to be honest, it's a bit of a worry. We're a big exporter to the U.S., so any tariffs they impose could hurt our economy. But we've got to remember that trade is a two-way street. If the U.S. puts tariffs on goods from other countries, those countries are likely to retaliate with tariffs of their own, and that could lead to a global trade war, which wouldn't be good for anyone, including Malaysia.
So it's a complex situation with lots of potential consequences.
Yeah.
We'll definitely need to keep an eye on how that unfolds. Now, while we're talking global trends, Indonesia is considering delaying some of its LNG exports to focus on domestic needs. What's happening there?
It seems like Indonesia is facing growing demand for energy at home, and they want to make sure they've got enough LNG to meet their own needs before they start exporting it to other countries. It's a reminder that energy security is a top priority for a lot of countries, and that can sometimes lead to some unexpected shifts in the global energy market.
Interesting. So that's another one to watch. What other international news is grabbing your attention?
Well, there's some interesting news from Singapore. Their core inflation has hit a 3-year low, which is pretty remarkable because it's going against the trend of rising inflation we've been seeing in many other parts of the world.
That's fascinating. So different countries are experiencing very different economic realities. What about in the U.S.? Anything noteworthy happening over there?
Well, the U.S. job market is giving some mixed signals. Jobless claims rose slightly recently, but continuing claims, meaning the number of people who are already receiving unemployment benefits, actually jumped to a 3-year high.
That doesn't sound so good. Could that be a sign that the job market is weakening?
It's hard to say for certain. It could be a temporary thing, or it could be an early warning sign of a wider economic slowdown. We'll need to keep a close watch on it.
Okay. And of course, we can't forget about the ongoing saga of TikTok. There might be a new twist in that story.
Yeah, it looks like TikTok might be able to avoid a full-blown U.S. sale after all. They're exploring alternative deals with the Trump administration, maybe involving a change of control or some other arrangement to address the national security concerns.
So there might be a compromise in the works. That'd be good news for TikTok's many users.
Yeah.
But speaking of TikTok, it's interesting that their parent company, ByteDance, is planning to spend a massive $20 billion this year, with a lot of that going towards AI infrastructure.
That's a huge investment. It shows just how seriously ByteDance is taking the development of AI. They clearly see it as a major driver of future growth.
And on that note, it's interesting how Trump seems to be shifting his focus away from the China spying angle when it comes to TikTok.
Right. He's downplaying that threat now and putting more emphasis on broader cybersecurity concerns. It could be a strategic move to pave the way for a deal that lets TikTok keep operating in the U.S. while still addressing those wider security issues.
That makes sense. So we've covered a lot of ground today, both in terms of Malaysian company news and the international scene. Before we wrap up, let's step back and think about the big picture. What are some of the key takeaways from all this news?
Well, I think the overarching theme here is that we're living in a time of really rapid change and a lot of uncertainty. Whether it's the job market, the global political landscape, or the constant evolution of technology change is the only constant.
It's a tough choice. But for me, it's got to be between that green hydrogen investment in Sarawak and the whole AI jobs discussion. The idea of Bintulu becoming this global center for clean energy is just so exciting. And it really shows how Malaysia is stepping up when it comes to sustainability. But then there's that whole AI thing, which is mind-blowing and a little bit scary at the same time. Makes you really think about the future of work and what skills we need to stay ahead of the game.
I totally get you. I'm with you on both of those. The green hydrogen investment could be huge, not just for Sarawak, but for all of Malaysia. And yeah, the AI revolution, it's something we all need to wrap our heads around. It's not just about tech, it's about how we adapt as a society.
Yeah, you're right. What strikes me is how those two stories, even though they seem so different, are actually connected in a way. They both point to this bitter trend of disruption and innovation that's shaping our world.
Exactly. We're seeing those traditional industries like energy being disrupted by new tech. And at the same time, we're seeing these brand new industries popping up that are driven by AI and automation. It's a period of massive change, both exciting and challenging.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, the key takeaway here is to embrace that change,
Yeah.
stay informed, and
Yeah.
never stop learning. The world's not slowing down. So those who are ready to adapt are going to be the ones who thrive.
Couldn't agree more.
So to all our listeners in Malaysia and beyond, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive and that it's given you some things to think about. The world of money never sleeps. So make sure you subscribe to the Malaysia Money Matters podcast to stay ahead of the curve. Until next time. Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you would like a deeper dive into all the investment opportunities from today's news, subscribe to my newsletter at moneymatters.substack.com. I will be sharing a deeper analysis of the key investment opportunities from today's news, including what makes these opportunities stand out and how they fit into the broader market trends. By subscribing to the Malaysia Money Matters newsletter, you will also get exclusive insights on my watch list and portfolio and fundamental reports on Malaysian listed companies.